Hello and good morning. Um, welcome back. Today we're going to be in Mark chapter 14. May or may not need to turn my car on because it's just getting a little bit cold and it's getting a little chilly. But we're just gonna get right into it. So this is the death and the resurrection of Jesus. This is a little bit of a longer chapter. Jesus the servant. There we go. A longer chapter. So yeah. So it just starts out with verse 1. I'm reading from the NLT translation. And I also have my life application Bible. So if you ever hear me saying I just want to read what the insight says or the study part says, it's a study Bible. So it has the Bible verses at the top and then it has the commentary at the bottom. So that's what I mean whenever I say I'm going to read the insight or the study part or the commentary, whatever. So it says, it was now 2 days before Passover and the festival of unleavened bread, and the leading priests and the teachers of religious law were looking for an opportunity to capture Jesus secretly and to kill him. But not during the Passover celebration, they agreed, or the people may riot. And I just find it really, not funny, but just one thing that I was, okay, I'll finish my thought. I have a habit of, going on to the next thing before I finish the first thing. So I find it really funny that, they're just they were looking for an opportunity to capture him. It says they were still looking, which means they were, doing this beforehand. They're still looking for an opportunity to capture Jesus secretly and to kill him. And it just reminds me of, I've talked about this before, where it's, sorry, my little thing, how jealousy, when you allow jealousy and envy, and when you allow those feelings that just start to overwhelm you when someone comes into your life or a group or whatever, comes and threatens your ego or threatens, whatever it is, and then you become jealous because that person is embarrassing you, or that person is doing better than you, or that person is whatever, getting more praise than you, they're getting more attention than you. You end up making someone your enemy that is not actually your enemy, but just because you allow that the envy and the rage and the jealousy, and all those feelings to arise in you, you make someone out to be an enemy that's actually a foe. And oh no, wait, no, a foe is an enemy that's actually a friend. You make a foe out to, you make a friend out to be a foe. There we go. But no, you do. And that happens in this very today, but Jesus is not against the religious leaders, or I mean, he's against what they stand for, he's against what they're doing, but he's not against them as people. He came to save them as well. He came so that even one of them could turn to him and accept him. So he's not their enemy, but in their mind they're making him out to be the enemy. That is why they are secretly, that's why they have to do it in secret, because they know that it's wrong. That's why they are huddling together, and plotting in secret places, because they know that it's wrong. They know that they're doing something wrong. If it wasn't wrong, then they'd be able to do it out in the open, but it's wrong. And they know that they're on the wrong. Their hearts are just too hardened. for them to actually acknowledge that and to believe that they're doing something wrong. You know, they're too okay with being in the wrong. Um, so we're moving forward. This is verse 3. This is a woman anoints Jesus with perfume. And it says, meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume made from essence of nard. She broke open the jar and poured the perfume over his head. Some of the people at the table were indignant. Why waste such expensive perfume, they asked. It could have been sold for a year's wages, and the money could have been given to the poor. So they scolded her harshly. But Jesus said, leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, and you can help them whenever you want to. But you will not always have me. She has done what she could and has anointed my body for burial ahead of time. I tell you the truth, wherever the good news is preached, wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deeds will be remembered and discussed, and it is. But I love that Jesus stands up for her, and it just reminds me, you know, how differently Jesus thinks from the way that we think. You know, from our human mind, it would make sense, you know, why are you wasting this perfectly good, expensive perfume, this expensive oil? It could have been sold, you know, and helped the poor and given to the poor. But I love that Jesus, and it says, I don't like this, but it says that they scolded her harshly. I love that Jesus stood up for her and he says, leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? You know, and it's kind of like, even when you think you're doing the right thing, you might not be doing the right thing, like selling the expensive perfume and giving it to the poor. It isn't necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I don't know. I love that Jesus, he sticks up for her. And he just says, leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? And she's preparing, or she is, what is it? She has anointed my body for burial ahead of time. I love that. So we're going to move forward. Let's see. Verse 10. Judas agrees to betray Jesus. So it says, then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, went to the leading priest to arrange to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted, of course they were delighted, when they heard why he had come. And they promised to give him money. So he began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. The verse, like, it just popped into my head where it's, oh my gosh, why am I about to butcher this? What does a man gain or something if he gains the world but loses his soul? It's like, really, Judas? You know, you get money. Sorry. Oh, I hate yawning. But this is what you're selling Jesus out for money. And then he ends up killing himself. You end up dying. So what was the point, you know? But yeah, I don't know. And like, he was the one that came to them, and they were delighted when they heard why he had come. So this is verse 12. The disciples prepare for the Passover. On the first day of the Passover of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb is sacrificed, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go to prepare the Passover meal for you?" So Jesus sent two of them into Jerusalem with these instructions: "As you go into the city, a man carrying a pitcher of water will meet you. Follow him. At the house he enters, say to the owner, 'The teacher asks, where is the guest room where I can eat the Passover meal with my disciples?' He will take you upstairs to a large room that is already set up. That is where you should prepare our meal." So the two disciples went into the city and found everything just as Jesus had asked, and they prepared the Passover meal there. Sorry. Anyways, moving forward. In the evening, Jesus arrived. Oh, this is Jesus and the disciples shared the last supper. Why am I'm about to say my R is like aw. Nothing's wrong with that. But anyways, okay. In the evening, Jesus arrived with the 12. As they were at the table eating, Jesus said, because last time I read this, I was like, as they were at the table eating Jesus. And I was like, wait, no, that's not how it goes. So they were eating, Jesus said, I tell you the truth. One of you eating with me here will betray me. Greatly distressed, each one of them in turn asked, "Am I the one?" He replied, "It is one of you 12 who is eating from this bowl with me. For the Son of Man must die, as the scriptures declared long ago. But how terrible it will be for the one who betrays me. It would be far better for that man, if he had never been born." And I was just like, could you imagine? You are sitting. Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. I'm so tired. I'm so sorry. Okay. You are sitting at the table and you're just enjoying a nice meal, and Jesus is like, one of you is going to betray me. And it would be better for that man to have never been born at all. Could you imagine that? My heart would literally sink through my entire body. I don't even know what I would do. I don't even know what I would do. I think I would just start like crying. I think I would just have a mental breakdown at that point. There's no way, after hearing those words, I don't know, I would not be well. I'd be like, okay, no, we can't do this anymore. Like, he already knows. He knows. And I know he knows. Like, stop. No, I can't do that. Anyways, so this is verse 22. As they were eating, Jesus took some bread and blessed it. Then he broke it into pieces. I'm sorry, I have allergies. It's so bad. It like doesn't stop. Then broke it into pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, take it, for this is my body." And I'm just seeing what time it is, or how long I have. And he took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it, and he gave it to them. And they all drank from it. And he said to them, "This is my blood, which confirms the covenant between God and his people. It is poured out as a sacrifice for many. I tell you the truth, I will not drink wine again until the day I drink in the new kingdom of God." Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives. So the Last Supper is remembered. This is from the Insight, by many different terms. Each name believers use for this sacrament brings out a different dimension to it. It is the Lord's Supper because it commemorates the Passover meal Jesus ate with his disciples. It is the Eucharist, and then in parentheses it says Thanksgiving, because in it we thank God for Jesus's work for us. It is the communion because through it we commune with God and with other believers. As we eat the bread and we drink the wine, we should be quietly reflective as we recall Jesus' death and his promise to come again, grateful for God's wonderful gift to us, and joyful as we meet with Christ in the body of believers. And oh my gosh, I'm sorry. That's why I think it's really important to, prepare your heart before you partake in communion. And to kind of just sit with God for a second. I don't know how other churches do it, but normally they kind of give us like a moment beforehand, before we take it, to just kind of whatever. If you need to confess something to the Lord, if you just need to just say thank you, if you need to just get something off of your chest, whatever it is, or just sit in silence or just in remembrance, but to really prepare your heart for what you're about to partake in. I think it's easy, especially after like time after time of taking it, it's easy to kind of just be like, oh, this is a routine thing. But to really grasp the gravity of the importance of communion every single time, I think it's so important to like just take those few seconds and really be present in that moment, before you take it, and just to remember like the actual importance and the actual gravity of the reason as to why we're taking communion. So this is verse 27. This is Jesus again predicts Peter's denial. On the way, Jesus told them, "All of you will desert me, for the scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there." Peter said to him, even if everyone else deserts you, I never will." And Jesus replied, "I tell you the truth, Peter. This very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times, and that you even knew me." "No," Peter declared emphatically. "Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." And all the others vowed the same. And I feel like you can tell that Peter's heart is like in it, he means it in that moment, but when it happens, and as we read forward, yeah, it kind of like addresses it in a way. But I believe in this moment Peter was genuine with what he said, but just the pressures of life and the pressures of other people crept into his mind and allowed what happened to happen. So this is Jesus agonizes in the garden, and this is verse 32. They went to the olive grove called Gethsemane, and Jesus said, "Sit here while I go and pray." He took Peter, James, and John with him, and he became deeply troubled and distressed. He told them, "My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." So he went on a little further and fell to the ground. Oh my gosh, this just keeps happening. And fell to the ground. He prayed. This rain is not helping. This rain does not help me at all. If like the sun is out, I'm ready to go, but the rain isn't helping. He went out a little further and fell to the ground. He prayed that if it were possible, that awful hour awaiting him might pass him might pass him by. Where am I? Abba, Father, he cried out, everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done. Then he returned and found the disciples asleep, and he said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Couldn't you watch with me even 1 hour? Keep watch and pray, so that you will not give in to temptation, for the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, or the body is weak. And that's what I mean by, I believe Peter's spirit was very willing when he said that. He was very willing, and I believe that he meant it in that moment. But the flesh is weak. The flesh is very weak, and that is why it says, keep watch, stay alert, and pray, so that you will not give into temptation. And I just can't even imagine, like, when it says that he fell to the ground and he prayed that if it were possible, that this awful hour awaiting him might pass him by. And he cries out to God, everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine. That is a true sacrifice, when you have to sit and pray those words. Yet your will and not my will. Jesus, you can tell. I mean, he's literally in anguish, crying out for this cup of suffering to be taken away from him. But despite his prayers, despite what he is praying for, ultimately he is praying for the Lord's will to be done, even if it meant that the cup of suffering would not be taken away from him. And clearly we know that it wasn't. But even if it meant that his prayers weren't going to be answered in the way that he was praying for them to be answered. Is that making sense, the way I'm wording that? So yeah, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So we're starting in verse 39. Then Jesus left them again and prayed the same prayer as before. When he returned to them, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open, and they didn't know what to say. When he returned to them for the third time, he said, go ahead and sleep. Have your rest. But no, the time has come. The Son of Man betrayed into the hands of sinners. Up, let's be going. Look, the betrayer is here. And immediately, even as Jesus said this, Judas, the one of the 12, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. Then they had been, what? Nope. They had been sent by the leading priests. The priests are sending these people. Let that sink in, okay? The priests are sending them. The teachers of religious law and the elders. The traitor, Judas, had given them the prearranged signal. You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. Then you can take him away under guard. As soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus. Rabbi, he exclaimed, and gave him the kiss. Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him, but one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing his ear off. Jesus asked them, am I some kind of dangerous revolutionary that you have come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there among you teaching every day. But these things are happening to fulfill the scriptures. To fulfill what the scriptures say about me. Then the disciples deserted him and ran away. One young man followed behind, was clothed only with a long linen shirt. When the mob tried to grab him, he slipped out of his shirt and ran away naked. Oh, wow. But it says, then all his disciples deserted him, just as he said, and they ran away, just as Jesus had said it was going to happen, that he would be deserted. Cephas questions Jesus. This is verse 53. They took Jesus to the high priest's home, where the leading priests, the elders, and the teachers of religious law had gathered. Meanwhile, Peter followed him at a distance and went right into the high priest's courtyard. There he sat with the guards, warming himself by the fire. And inside, this is so bad, I'm so sorry. This dyslexia is like, whew. Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find evidence against Jesus. They don't even have any evidence against him, bro. They were trying to find evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death, but they couldn't find any. Many false witnesses spoke against him, but they contradicted each other. Finally, some men stood up and gave this false testimony. We heard him say, I will destroy the temple made with human hands, and in 3 days I will rebuild another one made without human hands. But even then, they didn't get their story straight. Then the high priest stood up before the others and asked Jesus, well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself? But Jesus was silent and made no reply. Then the high priest asked, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One, or the Blessed One? Blessed. Jesus said, I am. There's an asterisk, so it says, or the I am is here, or I am the Lord. See Exodus 3:14. And you will see the Son of Man seated in the place of in the place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore his clothing to show his horror and said, "Why do we need other witnesses? You have heard all, nope, you have all heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" "Guilty," they all cried. "He deserves to die." Then some of them began to spit at him, and they blindfolded him and beat him with their fists. "Prophesy to us," they jeered. Do we even, I'm sure people do, but I just want to make this. Do we even understand what kind of self-control Jesus had to have during this time when people are literally spitting at him and blindfolding him and beating him with their fists? Here is a man that didn't even have to be in the same house or the same place for him to heal someone. He just had to speak and it was done. Here is a man that would just simply reach out his hand and touch people and they were healed. He just had to speak and demons were cast out. Here is a man that even just a woman just had to touch the hem of his clothing and she was healed. Here is a man with this type of power, all power, and you are spitting on him and blindfolding him and beating him. But I just want to acknowledge just the type of self-control Jesus had to have, knowing and having knowledge of the power that he had, and the knowledge of knowing like, oh, this could be completely different, you know? But yet he didn't react. And then we're continuing to verse 35, or in verse 35, "Prophesy to us," they jeered. And the guards slapped him as they took him away. And then this is the last portion of chapter 14. Sorry, I'm just butchering these verses. I don't mean to. When I read out loud, this is what happens. I'm a lot better like if I read to myself or in my head, but out loud, whew, I still mess up, but it's normally pretty bad when I read out loud. I'm so sorry. But this is verse 66. This is Peter denies knowing Jesus. Meanwhile, Peter was in the courtyard below. One of the servant girls who worked for the high priest came by and noticed Peter warming himself at the fire. She looked at him closely and said, "Were you one of those with Jesus of Nazareth?" But Jesus denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. And he went out into the entryway. Just then, a rooster crowed. When the servant girl saw him standing there, she began telling the others, "This man is definitely one of them." But Peter denied it again. A little later, some of the other bystanders confronted Peter and said, "You must be one of them, because you are a Galilean." Peter swore, "A curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know this man you're talking about." And immediately the rooster crowed the second time. Suddenly, Jesus's words, the second time. Wait, I thought it was 3 times. Oh. Wait, have I been living? Suddenly, Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3. Okay, he denied 3 times, but the rooster crows 2. Okay. I don't know why. Anyways, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times that you even know me. And he broke down and wept. Again, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And I just wonder, like, I feel bad for Peter too in this moment too, because again, the spirit is very willing. The spirit is so willing. And it's really easy. I mean, it's easy for us to even be like in moments, in times of like when it's just between God and I. God, I would never do this to you. God, this would never happen. I would never treat you like this. I would never say these things. I would never deny you. And then, when it comes time to it, do we fulfill those things that we said that we would never do? And sometimes we pass the test and sometimes we are guilty, and there's no judgment to Peter, because in a lot of like almost and a lot of these stories in the Bible, I don't know what this was, but a lot of the stories in the Bible, we can 100% put ourselves in their shoes. We can relate, and maybe not in our current state, but maybe in the past, or maybe it's something that we're going to go through, but we can relate to a lot of things that happen because these are human beings. And there's nothing new under the sun. It might look different, but baseline, it's the same, So there's absolutely no judgment on Peter, but it's really cool to see, Peter like this, and then to see as time goes on who he becomes, and the steadfastness of Peter and Paul and the other disciples. And it's it is really cool to see, and it also gives hope. Peter was once a man that denied, and he was part of them, and he was part of deserting Jesus. It says that then all his disciples deserted him and ran away. They did not stick with him. They did not stay with him when he was being beaten and being spat on. He was alone. He was with no one besides his betrayers and those who wanted to plot and kill him. His friends, his disciples were not there with him when he was going through all of these things. So not only did Peter deny him, but he also deserted him. So, but like I said, it is really cool to see where he started, how he used to be, and where he ended up. So, and thank God for forgiveness. Thank God for grace. Thank God for mercy. And thank God for his love. And thank God that he is understanding, and that he gives us, time. He gives us time to turn around, to repent, to change our ways, to make things right. Thank you, Lord, for that. So that concludes chapter 14. And then we'll only have 2 more chapters. We have 15 and 16, and then we're done. So, the next chapter is going to be Jesus's death, and then, but 16, and I think I want to touch in what chapter is that? I'm gonna have to look it up. It might be John, because Mark is really, he is very much just like bam, 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 straight to the point. He doesn't really waste time. Whereas I feel like the other one's a little bit more elaborate. But Mark is like, bam, this happened, bam, that happened, bam, that happened, next, okay, on to the next, you know what I mean? He's very much straight to the point. I think this is the shortest book of the Gospels. I think so. Maybe not. Yes, it is. Yeah, he's very straight to the point. This only has 16 chapters. The other ones I think at least have like 20. At least. So, yeah, but we're almost done. We have 15 and 16. But yeah, that concludes 14, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 chapters and finishing up Mark. I feel like I've learned a lot, and then maybe I'll give kind of like maybe I'll kind of write a couple things of some things that I learned and really reflect on Mark, because it's been really good to me. So, yeah. Alrighty, until next time, adios.